Hey man, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Sorry, sorry this took a minute.
No, we're all good. It's great to have you on. I mean, I feel like as from everything I've seen, at least on your social media accounts, I feel like it doesn't you don't find more of a sports guy, especially in the emo field than you, especially when it comes to Detroit sports.
Oh yeah, I'm a ride or die.
You're
That's what it
you're
is. I'm a
you're
ride or
like
die.
the homer of homers, which is like the best way to be.
Yeah.
And also loving the shirt.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I wore it
Had to represent.
specifically for
Yeah.
today. I brought this.
Yeah, you get all decked out.
That's a
You're always
that's a
wearing
really
Lions gear. You're always decked out, man. I love it.
I have I think I have from when the Pistons won their most recent
Hmm.
championship. Uh four championship shirts. You got to live it up when you do
Yeah, man.
that.
When it rains, it pours. You gotta bring it in.
Well, I think in my lifetime, the one sport that I haven't really, I like hockey, but it's the one I just never really got into.
Yeah.
And I feel like sports always already takes up like a ridiculous amount of time in my life. And
Yeah.
if I were to get into hockey, I would have like almost no free time because I also watch a lot of college sports as well.
Yeah.
So,
It's dangerous. And you
but
went
like
to Michigan State, right?
I did, yes,
Yeah.
yes, since I'm a big state fan.
Yeah.
But the one team I think growing up that would have been the best fan to be to be a part of the fan group wise would have been the Red Wings because they had a
Absolutely.
dynasty, man.
For sure. Yeah. 80s, 90s Red Wings were
Yeah,
definitely something else.
yeah.
Um, Sweet. Yeah. So, before we'll talk plenty of sports, but I want to, start talking a little music, and we have a little tip off question I like to ask people. And so I'd love to know what you're currently listening to.
um, I listen to a lot of podcasts. That's my biggest thing.
For sure.
Yeah, I listen to a bunch of board game podcasts and sports podcasts. Um, and also a lot of NPR podcasts.
Hmm.
As far as music goes, I've been listening to a lot of MJ Lenderman, which is really
Oh
awesome.
yeah. I feel
And
like
also,
he's the real deal right now.
oh yeah, for sure. Plus those like the billion videos that come on because that's I just randomly populate it for me on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I actually don't use YouTube for a lot of music based things, but I was like, oh, what is this? And
Hmm.
yeah, I listened to it and I really liked it. And a lot of Bon Iver and
Hmm.
Phoebe Bridgers. Those are my big faves
Man,
now.
you're
So
you're speaking my language. Yeah, for sure. That's like I feel like that's like the core nucleus of like especially the Discord community we have for indie basketball. It's like that's the
that's
zone right
awesome.
there. Well, cool. So, on top of that, one thing I've been doing lately is I'm having guests recommend one song to add to this continuous playlist we're doing. Is there any specific song you'd love to add? It's been all over the place, so don't worry about any sort of flow or anything.
Hmm, that's a tough question.
Hmm.
Um, I think we'll go with my current favorite of MJ Lindemann, and I would do the "You Have Bought Yourself a Boat." That's a
Okay.
that's a pretty good jam.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, no one's dropped MJ in there yet, and I feel like that's a good level setter. Sweet. Um, so yeah, it's obviously, it's great to have you on. I see we have you in the setup, which looks like the Count Your Lucky Stars headquarters.
Yeah, that's right.
So you started the label in 2007. I guess I'd love to know what made you kind of want to start the label and like how did it get going?
Well, so originally, my old band, Empire Empire, was going to do a split with a band called Look Mexico, who are were good friends of ours
Hmm.
back in the day, and we had found another label that had was interested in doing so, but then Look Mexico got signed by another label, and I think it kind of really spooked that the label that was going to put out our split, like contractually,
Sure.
if something was a conflict or whatever, and so they ended up backing out, and so did Look Mexico for that matter. But I was like, man, I still want to do a 7 inch, and we had been we independently released the first EP when it became a giant, and we had been selling a bunch of CDs to this UK distro called Strictly No Capital Letters,
Hmm.
which is run by Andy Malcolm over in the UK, and he is really really awesome. And this was back in the MySpace days, so we we were like messaging each other back and forth, and I was kind of like hinting that like hey we'd be interested in working with you or whatever,
Hmm.
and he was like hey man if you're interested like we're interested too, um, but you got to find another label to pay for half of it. And at that point, I was like, hey man, that's a half price vinyl, and so that's how we started. And then we just kept, we started touring a lot, and we just kept running into all these amazing bands
Hmm.
that were also kind of in a similar situation, who, you know, like for example, I listened to the Ben's episode on Annabelle,
Hmm.
from Annabelle,
Yeah.
and that was one of the early bands that we just happened to run in, that we had played with earlier on. And just a band, we'd stayed at their place and became friends with them. And it just felt like a natural thing to just start putting out our friends' records. And it just kind of, snowballed from there.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I feel like the term Midwest emo gets, I guess, thrown around a lot, but I truly you've made many friends in the Midwest, and
That's right. That's
I'm
right.
just
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's really how the label gets built, is you just the amount of times playing
Oh, yeah.
shows all around the Midwest is just like you kind of gather all these friends and you just want to make music together, right?
Yeah. I mean, and when it came down to it, especially at that time, it was an incredibly small scene. I mean,
Yeah.
to be able to find any band that was doing, which it kind of seems weird in retrospect now, right? But like
Hmm.
at that point, mostly we were just playing with like, man, especially in Michigan at that point, there's like a lot of grindcore bands, like really
Hmm.
heavy bands or whatever. And so we would be this oddball band on every single bill. And then when we started playing a couple bills, just random places, um, and we met other people like that, it was like, wow, there's no one. It almost feels like that those like cliche 80s movies where like the nerd meets another nerd because there's like no one else around, they become friends with each other.
Right.
It's kind of like that, and we just kind of like started like kind of connecting those dots, and then it just yeah it just organically grew. So
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, and so obviously starting with Empire Empire, you haven't played with the band in a while, but now you have Mount Oriander, and I
yep.
guess um what do you see as the kind of change, other than like personnel playing between those bands?
Right.
What do you see as the
Well,
change between those bands?
ironically, it's actually not that
You're
difficult,
right.
different in personnel. I mean, Empire started as my solo project, and then my
Sure.
wife joined, and we had various members. But yeah, this one is just my solo project. I don't really have any intention of making it into a full time band.
Hmm.
I mean, the records are, I play every instrument on it, but I don't have really any inclination of making it a full time band.
Hmm.
I might write it. We might record a couple songs. And I'm open for that to change. I've got a
Sure.
good group of people I'm playing with now, but like, yeah, it was kind of like started with that sort of idea where I can just pick it up and do it whenever I want.
Yeah.
But I think with Empire, it when that ended, it felt like the right time. It was just the right time to end it. And when this came back, I just wanted to do something different because I feel like if I had started out with Empire, all I would be doing is, people would just want to hear those songs, and
Sure.
I just kind of wanted to write new songs. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, totally makes sense. And are you playing shows with as Mount Oriander, or are
yeah,
you
we
just
just did a tour. Um, if you've ever heard of Chinese football,
okay?
they're this really great band from China, and they were doing their first European tour. So we did a leg with them. That was I think like 5 days,
Hmm.
and then we did a second leg, another 5 or so days with Star Funeral, which is another band on the label
Yeah,
on Cutting the Key Stars. And so it was like a 10 something day tour. That was last month, so it wasn't even
yeah,
that long ago.
awesome. Yeah, I love Star Funeral. That's definitely
Yeah.
a band I discovered through TikTok, of all
Oh, that's
places.
awesome. Yeah.
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 Um, cool. And So on the topic of Empire, you've definitely been on record saying if the Detroit Lions ever win a Super Bowl, how do you?
When I always say when they win the Super Bowl.
I mean, you this year it's looking good so far.
Well, I'll say last year. So, I had a inordinate amount of people last year because they were an NFC Championship game and they were
Mhm.
up a silly amount at the end of the first half, and I had just like so many people messaging me. Um, it's funny because I think a lot of people um think that I was like, uh, okay, have you seen Angels in the Outfield?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so you know how the dad's like a dickhead, and he's like, "Oh, I'm only gonna come back when the Angels win the pennant," and
Right.
like he's not meaning that. No, the purpose that I really wanted to, I mean, I love the line so much that I just wanted to, I mean, at that point it was misery, right? But I wanted to share my love of the lines and give somebody else, give like a rooting interest for people that, might not otherwise have it.
Yeah.
I mean, I spend way too much time every day on lines, various lines things. But yeah, no, I think it would be amazing if it happened. And I'd be happy to over I don't know how much. I mean, it seems like such a I'm just trying to take everything one step at a time because
Sure.
they have the best record they've ever had since like pre Super Bowl era, like 1956 or something
Hmm.
silly like that. So yeah, I mean, they've got the pieces. I really hope they trade for an edge because the deadline's coming up here on Tuesday. Um, yeah, I mean, but I haven't as to what everything means, per reunion. I don't know if I've really been able to think of anything past just them winning because I just care so much about them winning.
Right. What does that mean for if the Pistons win a championship? Because
Well,
they're much
okay,
further away.
right. Oh, they're way, way further away. Um, I would say like I'm a huge, huge Tigers fan as well, and so I said if
Yeah.
the Tigers won, we would do something special too, not a reunion, and it would be the same deal for, I think the Pistons. We would
Yeah.
probably like record some more songs or something like that. But
Sure.
I mean, because both those teams, those three major Detroit teams are just like, that and anything Michigan State related are
Mhm.
huge for me. So
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's talk a little more about, I guess, some Detroit basketball. Uh, so obviously, as we covered, big Detroit sports fan. I guess, how far back does your Pistons fandom go?
So we got to go with the bad boys. That's
Yeah.
where we start out. Was such a good era. That's when I was a kid, and they were so good and so
Hmm.
dominant at the time. And the thing I loved about that team, and honestly, I think about the go to work Pistons too, would have been like they were much more of a team, right? Like they everything they did was like gelled. They
Hmm.
were like one unit, and as opposed to like you have your like um Michael Jordan type superstar carries the team, or LeBron even for
Yeah.
pretty good stretch or whatever. But yeah, I love that team aspect of it, and I just love that like I think some people have made comparisons to what the Lions are today, or kind of like what the Bad Boys were from that era. We're just like they just like they're gonna grind you down.
Sure.
They're gonna outwork you, and I love that ethos. It really resonates with me. So I'd like this that like that salt of the earth that you get from the
Right. Fro-
Midwest.
from the from the perspective of a fan at that time, everyone else sees the Pistons of that era as
Yeah.
villains. You didn't possibly see them as villains, right? You're like,
I'm
no,
gonna
these are the
tell you
guys with the
that
best.
I hate for example, I hate Michael Jordan.
Well, I'm from Chicago, so I mean
Yeah, or
it's
I mean, I get that. Like, and like, I don't feel that way about any other era of Chicago sports, but like him
mhm,
and Isaiah Thomas, had that
of course.
giant beef, and of course, I was raised, my blood was raised in Michigan, and so like that's your basis of
Hmm.
basis of everything. I mean, I can acknowledge that like Michael Jordan is easily one of the best basketball players of all time, if not the best, and
Sure.
that's an easy debate to have. So real recognize real on that, right? But
Hmm.
but I'm a Pistons guy through
I
and through.
I
So
can't fault you. You know, it's a tough one. Every team has their person. They can't just like get
yep,
behind no matter how big they are. You know, a guy like LeBron, like I've had waves where like
sure,
I was
yeah,
I was intrigued, and then of course he did the whole decision, and I'm
uh-huh,
like, I this guy sucks, but then I'm like,
right,
actually, he's like a
right.
good person.
And he
So
did come back and he won a
yeah,
championship.
right,
I'd similar. I did the same thing with you, and I don't know how I would feel if I was from Ohio and you
right,
had that like, you know, and also the whole spectacle of him leaving and the ridiculous
yeah,
production behind everything. I mean, that would felt that like in that Dan Gilbert letter,
yeah,
the Comic Sans,
uh
like you're betraying the city. I don't know. It's a tough thing because certain athletes like LeBron was raised, he was born and raised, Ohioan or whatever,
hmm
right? And I think that adds a lot of that like, weight to it. Whereas a lot of pro athletes are not
yeah.
from that
Jordan's from
city.
North Carolina,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
um,
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their local kind of allegiance, and even as you mentioned, having Benjamin Annabelle, he was very
yeah.
he's that's like his
Oh,
situation.
yeah, and we've talked about that because Ben and I are actually in a band together as well.
Hmm.
Um, but anyway, yeah, but it's funny because and also other things were like in general, I'm a home team guy
Yeah.
and I'll root for some players. And like for example, when Golden State first started getting really good, um Draymond Green was a Spartan, and so I was
Hmm.
really pulling for them. And then after a while, it was like, oh,
You
okay, the
still
guy
pulling for
is,
Draymond
yeah. I mean, I
Green?
love Draymond, but he's a bit much.
So when you attended Michigan State, were you going to games and stuff?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Not as much as I think that I did not like sitting in the student section.
Sure,
Because the student section itself is a weird thing. I don't drink or do any
sure.
or anything like that, and so they would like put your hands like on each other and everything, do the stuff, and it kind of made me uncomfortable. So I went to games, but I would like to sit in other places as opposed to the
Sure.
student section. But yes, yes, I did. So
Totally makes sense.
yeah.
Who were there any notable people while you were attending that and went on the NBA?
I don't think anybody that was like the most notable Michigan State player, of recent uh lore is Draymond Green.
Yeah.
And but like, and after I was there, you had a couple, like Miles Bridges, which
Hmm.
we don't want to talk about his
Yeah. Yeah.
issues. I won't,
Uh-huh.
I can't. Yeah, you have to disown certain players. I mean,
Yeah.
but when I went there, I was there from 2001 to 2005. So
Uh-huh.
they had just won a national championship prior to me coming, and they were
That's right.
still
You had your
they had some
Tom
really,
Izzo, yeah.
yeah, and he's still there. He's still
Yeah.
there. But they had a lot of. I think Michigan State doesn't produce a lot of superstars,
Right.
almost for the same reason that I like the Lions and the Pistons and stuff because it's a really team
Hmm.
complementary game for them. I think Tom Izzo specifically doesn't chase a lot of one and dones. He's a he's a very good coach, but that
Sure.
dude is an asshole too. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
he's like a tough guy to work for, and I think you really
Hmm.
have to work in a system. But I mean, the results are like I mean, when Draymond, for example, was drafted, did anybody imagine him being as good as he was?
Not
I
at
mean,
all.
even
Yeah.
me, who went to Michigan State and watched his entire career, he's from Saginaw originally, which is not
Hmm.
super far. So just stuff like that. I think it's interesting, but
Sure.
nothing that no one that's gonna. I mean, it's funny to see like role players like Bryn Forbes, like just like interesting
Right.
players that somehow stick around, but a lot of them end up, like Cassius Winston was one of the best Michigan State players in recent history, and
Yeah, yeah.
he was just a tweener. There was just no way that he was
Hmm.
going to stick in the league.
I
So
mean, 2004 it was you had Shannon Brown, right?
yeah, it's Shannon Brown. Well, Shannon Brown, yes, Shannon Brown, another person who had a checkered past. Yes, but
Yeah.
yes, yeah. I mean, he was
He could
fantastic to
dunk,
watch.
man.
Oh man, I mean, he was as far as skill um on the court, he was really good.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, that was again. I think the fun thing about Michigan State teams is they really seem to gel, and Tom Izzo runs the gamut where like they just play like a ridiculously hard schedule.
Hmm.
And it really prepares them for the, the NCAA tournament. But up till then, it's like kind of like,
Yeah.
the clay, it's getting molded. So,
So when you were attending Michigan State, were you playing as Empire during that time?
no, I had a couple other bands
Yeah.
that are not of note. That actually so I had another band called Anna Flyway that ended, that started right after I finished college. And I still
Hmm.
had some people who were going to Michigan State in that band. Um, no, I had a bunch of random bands. I had a band that started Taking Back Sunday.
Nice.
um, yeah,
That
no,
was the time. Yep.
it was the time, yeah. Because I mean, I always played I've always played the style of music that I
Sure.
played, but also it's definitely not difficult. It's definitely easier to find people that are into that.
Hmm.
At the time, it was difficult, so sometimes it was like, okay, well, I can get 80% of what I like doing here, or
Right.
70% or whatever. So and it was a fun band. So
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
being, you know, in college, going to college basketball games, but also being in bands, and that's very a rare thing. Just
it was,
honestly,
yeah,
the whole crux of me doing this. So, um, yeah, was it where I guess piggybacking off of that, like, are there moments you can remember where like basketball and music kind of like intertwined or overlapped or like,
yeah. I mean, I think especially during like the playoff run. I had a band practicing in college, and we came back from practice, and it was right when the Malice at the Palace had happened,
oh yeah,
the infamous Malice at the
uh-huh,
Palace. And like I remember any sports in general, like um, the Lions were in their first playoff game in a very very long time, and we were in Atlanta, Georgia, and I somebody had a TV and it was on during our set, and I was just like, I was playing, but I was pretty much watching the whole thing or whatever. And sometimes it's tougher to go on tour, and it's
yeah,
easier now because now you can like watch stuff on your phone. But it
true.
wasn't possible. Yeah, March is a time that was always difficult because South by was during that time,
Mhm.
and that's when March Madness is. I mean, the Pistons have been bad for a long time, and so
Sure,
you're not missing it. There's no illusion that they're making the postseason anytime
right.
soon. So.
Yeah, I've definitely seen clips of dudes who are like literally playing their set with their phone, like playing a game on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That just happened this last tour during a Michigan State football game.
Oh, amazing.
And somebody randomly had put like a drink holder in the mic, and I was like, "Oh, I can put my phone in here
There you
and
go.
watch the game while this is happening."
Oh man, that's incredible. How about playing? Did you growing up? Do you play basketball?
I did play basketball. I'd only played until middle school.
Yeah.
I had a really late growth spurt. I actually grew like over an inch in college, and so I
Hmm.
was pretty short. Um, I did that for a while, but it was always certain sports were like like scheduling wise harder, like they would overlap. And so I
Sure.
played baseball, I played soccer, I did flag football.
Hmm.
But then like there's in track, I was big in track, and so like a lot of times certain sports were, like I said, overlapping. You kind of had to make those choices. So um yeah, I mean, but I have a hoop outside, and I'll definitely
Yeah.
still shoot around now, trying to get my kids are interested in playing, so I'm kind of
Cool.
excited for
Awesome.
that.
Yeah, you got to carry it on. Yeah. Um. So, moving to the Pistons now, you're still keeping up with them, right?
I am. Yes, it's funny. Last year when they ran away with the streak for the longest
Mm.
every
It was something to behold, man.
it was every night I watched so many games, and I was like, please let tonight be the night that it ends. Please let tonight be the night that ends. And it
But
just
everyone wanted the opposite.
yeah, of
Everyone's like,
course. Yeah,
how
of
far could
course.
it go?
I know. Well, it's like watching a train wreck, right? And like if that had been any other team but my team, I also would have been rooting for a prolonged run.
Which is
Um
where we landed with the White Sox this year.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, but they are historically the worst team
Awful.
in baseball
They made the
ever.
Pistons look pretty
Yes,
great
I
last
know.
year.
Although I have seen hilarious memes, um, that the double standard that the Lions and the Pistons had the same amount of wins last year, and they're like, why is one considered good and why is one considered bad?
Oh man.
And I would joke, since we have 2 wins this year already, that like we're gonna double our streak and be bragging about it. But the
Yeah.
Pistons, I mean, they've been a mess. The recent Pistons have been a mess for a long time. I mean, the last time that we made the playoffs, it was when we very strangely traded for Blake Griffin,
Yeah.
at a time where we should have been like rebuilding, and then
Right.
he like dragged us into the playoffs, and of course we bottomed out immediately in that.
And that
And
was
we had
a emergency trade to get him out of
right,
LA.
right, yes. So our owner Tom Goris is this like eccentric, very wealthy, very strange man,
Hmm.
and I don't doubt the fact that he loves the Pistons, but I think he's terrible at his job.
Yeah.
And the Troy Weaver, at first we were like, oh, maybe Troy Weaver's like this madman, but he just like kept stockpiling like second round draft picks and drafting a million centers and just like, or collecting all the same positions, and like uh it was a mess. And then pulling in Monty last year,
Hmm.
well, pulling in Monty, I it was like, well, this guy was like coach of the year, so I was actually honestly excited about that. And then it just was like
He just mismanaged that team terribly.
so bad. The lineups that he was running out made zero sense, and he like stubbornly did the same thing over and over and over again. It was just like banging your head again. I mean, like there's for the to make a comparison, the Tigers and the Pistons, and what really all four major Detroit teams for a while have been rebuilding.
Sure.
And this year in particular, the Tigers have arrived. They made an improbable, but like
Yeah. Surpassed
they're
expectations a little bit, but
right,
yeah.
but they made the playoffs, and they won a series. The Red Wings have been rebuilding well. The obviously the Lions are doing really well, but the Pistons have just not moved that needle. And I do think it's difficult, right? Because like when you think about in any other sport, draft wise, you think,
Hmm.
okay, a second round draft pick has got to be good. But in the NBA, a second round
The
draft
second
pick
out
is,
of two.
well, this guy might play on our team. And it's like
Sure.
any other sport, it'd be like, wow, that's a high pick. And I think we have been screwed by the draft lottery, which I hate so
Sure.
much.
Okay.
Not just because of the bad luck with that.
Do you
But
like
I
the
mean, like,
changes they made recently to kind of help level the playing field in the draft lottery?
uh, I just hate the draft lottery so much that, like, I mean, because to me, like, okay, if you tank, fine, because then theoretically you get good players and then you stop tanking, right? That's the theory behind
Hmm.
it. And I don't think, I, I understand what the draft lottery set out to do, but I don't think it did that. I don't think it's
Sure.
done that. I mean, look at the Pistons and how bad they were last year, and we still got saddled with a bad. I mean, in comparison to what the picks that we should have gotten,
Yeah.
multiple years got bad picks, and so like with that weird middle ground where it's like, oh, there's X amount of players in this draft that are no brainers, and it's like we're right after that. And not only that, I can't say that they've drafted the smartest either. So I mean,
Sure.
you know, yeah. So I'm not a fan of the draft lottery, but like, um, I don't know. I mean, but they've just been so middling. And I've watched a couple games this year so far. Obviously, we're really young in the season, but
Hmm.
I don't have I don't have a lot of I don't know where they go from here is kind of
Sure.
my problem.
Because that is the thing. I mean, you guys got like you did get your top
That's right.
10 picks. You got Cade, you got
Yeah.
Jaden Ivey,
Yeah, and I
even
like both of them as players.
yep,
And I think um I read this article recently about because Cade is turnover king, right? He turns the ball a lot. And I read this article suggesting that he's lost his trust in his team and teammates because of the last, playing an incredibly bad team. And
sure.
I think honestly, the Pistons really had no choice but to give him that extension. And I,
Hmm.
I think that he's still that like potential personified. That's sort of how I feel about Cade is he could be great, but he also could just have like a middling career, and it would be,
True.
I
I
wouldn't be
mean, if he
surprised to
didn't
see him
have
away.
the first year injury and stuff, it's like maybe he gets off to a steady kind of
Right.
incline, but I feel like
But I mean,
that took some time out.
right, and also, yeah, that was at a really key developmental time. And I mean, but you look at the team that they put around him and the leadership that they put around him, and it was not very inspiring.
And he and Ivy are kind of the same exact role.
Yeah, yeah.
So they have something's got to give. I feel like they definitely have to get rid of one of those guys.
Right. Although they are playing pretty well together, I think.
Sure.
So, but yeah, and it's that's what I'm talking about. Like strange draft decisions, like pieces that like maybe good pieces, but do they fit together? That's that
Yeah.
team building. That's like, especially in basketball, I think it's the most crucial because you have such a small roster, that you really need everything to really gel together. And
Sure.
it's not, and there's some players that I love. Like I love Isaiah. I love beef stew.
Yeah.
I think Stewart, he's an awesome player, but like a fun player, but like I don't think he's a starter,
Right.
and I think like he does kind of bind the team together, but just the piece, and bringing back bringing back Tobias was a
Nobody wants that.
it was right. I mean, yeah, nobody wants that, and it's proven that I think maybe one game, a revenge game,
Hmm.
that's it. I mean, you're not getting anything out of him, and he was talk about a depressing era of Pistons that he really originally was from. I mean, that's a real
He's
bad one.
I feel kind of feel bad for him because I feel like every team he goes to, their fan base is just like, get him out of here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, play better, maybe, right? I
True.
mean,
Very true. Um, so do you feel Cade is the guy, or do you just not know where to go from here?
I mean, I think he could be the guy, but I don't think he's one of those players that is going to carry a team. I
Yeah.
think if you put the right pieces around him, uh, he could be,
Yeah.
but I don't know because I feel like I don't feel quite as grim this year about rearranging chairs on like the Titanic or deck chairs on Titanic or whatever. But we're still super early. Like I watched the season opener and they had that game and then the lead just slipped away. They just couldn't hold on to it, and I think that's going to be a common
Yeah.
problem. So yeah,
That's yeah.
I just don't know. I just don't know. It's so early this year, and the whole career has been an I don't know. It's been like a
True.
question for me. So
I feel like from a management standpoint, I feel like there are similarities between the Bulls and the Pistons right now because like I don't know what they're doing,
yeah,
but I
for
feel like the
sure.
difference is you guys are willing to tank year after year and it's going
Yeah,
nowhere. We
right,
are not willing to tank.
right. Well, I mean, but what good does tanking do if you can't draft well?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, you
absolutely.
can have all the draft picks and capital in the world, and it doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
there's a lot of teams that also do that weird, like the Pistons were doing when they brought in Blake Griffin, where it's like, let's supplement some veterans in here to mix them with
Hmm.
the youth and try and like just barely get by. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly I would rather eat bad contracts and just be bad and
Mhm.
then slowly rebuild it. And obviously that's easier said than done.
Sure.
But I think that would be my blueprint if I were, a GM of any team.
Yeah. And honestly, you don't even know if you'll be bad enough.
Yeah.
Like
Oh
the
yeah.
Wizards could be very well be much worse than the Pistons this year.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's the excitement of what I get to watch. Who will be worse?
We have the Cooper Flag sweepstakes this year. That's what we're getting.
That's too funny. Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, I like Jalen Duren. I mean, he
Yeah,
certainly
me too.
he could turn into like a Bam Adebayo like this year.
And I like Ivy too. I mean,
Yeah.
there are players in the team I like, but it's just
On this team, I just don't know.
yeah, it's just a collection of, I don't know. Sometimes it feels like a collection of players than it does a team.
Sure.
You know. So
I
I
feel
don't
you.
know. Yeah.
um,
But I mean, that being said, though, I mean, I'm not ever going to stop being a Pistons fan,
Of
and I will
course.
keep watching the games.
Yes.
And in the rare case that like at the with the Lions, they're actually turning it around. It is like an incredible feeling, like a hard fought. Like just I know as a fan you have nothing really to do with it, but you really do suffer with them.
Hmm.
So like it's exciting to watch the rise of it. And like I said, the '04 like '05 Pistons, that whole era of like the go to work Pistons. I mean, I'm surprised that they didn't win more championships. They were
Hmm.
such a fun team, and um going through that period and knowing just how amazing it is to go through that. Like I'm excited for at some point theoretically the Pistons
Hmm.
to get there again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why sports are great. It's like,
Hmm.
and if you truly root for every team in your town, it's like
Yeah.
you follow for so long, and then you realize there's a point of no
Hmm.
return, and it's like on to the next one,
Yep.
next season.
Yep.
You
Yep.
still got your Lions this year, so we'll hang on to that.
Yep.
um, cool. So the last kind of little thing I like to do is a game we call musician matchups, and it's a silly little game where we pick some players and try and come up with like who is the musical comp, and this can be based on whatever you feel, whether it's career arc, play style, whatever. So I sent you four names
Hmm.
before, and we'll kind of go back and forth and compare our answers. So we'll start with one of the bad boys, as we mentioned before, Bill Lambier.
Okay. This is my favorite one of all of
Yeah.
them. For me, I said it is the Smiths.
Oh.
Yeah, because uh incredibly talented, but man, what a fucking asshole. Bill Laimbeer is such a dick. I used to I this is really funny. I used to I was a TSA agent for a while, which
Okay.
is the funniest job. So that's the transportation security. So I was the guy at the airport telling you to, the things you can't have
Right.
and whatever. So we had celebrities come through. Like I met Martin Sheen. I can't really say I met Martin Sheen, right? But he came through my
Yes.
line. I looked at his
You
passport.
told him to take off his shoes.
Yeah. Well, he said, he saw that I recognized him. He said, "Oh, my name on my passport isn't the same as what you'd recognize me as. It was Estevez was his last name.
Ah, okay.
Just like anyway, Emilio is this his son or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, so we had a bunch of people come through, and I had been warned by multiple people that if Bill Laimbeer came through, don't try and talk to him because he's just a prick or whatever. And he did come through. He and John Sally came through, and John Sally was incredibly nice, and Bill Laimbeer was a stone faced asshole.
Oh man. That does
I
not
mean, but
surprise me in the slightest.
yeah, and I've heard so many stories about him, like from very, very, very miscellaneous people. But I also love that he also coached the Detroit Shock,
Okay.
the women's NBA
Uh-huh.
uh, team that existed for a long time or whatever. So,
Sure.
um,
Okay.
super talented
Interesting.
guy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely the I kind of went for a similar ish approach, but it's just like, I mean, he was just like very intense and like aggressive. Uh, so I went with minor threat because that's just like the what
Hell
you're getting
yeah,
out of him. Like when he was playing with the bad boys, he was basically minor threat on a
yeah,
basketball
yeah.
court.
That's incredible. Yeah. I also thought about that POD song, "Here Comes the Boom." That song.
Yeah.
I almost chose POD for that reason.
Oh
That
man.
specific song. That's so stupid.
That's funny. Moving on to a little later, we got Rip Hamilton.
Yeah, I love Rip. Okay, so my first thought was because the mask that he had to play with. I was like, do I want a band with a mask? But I was like, the only band I could think of is Slipknot, and I can't really, besides the mask, could I really think about that? But I just want to say that like he was like such a, I don't know, it's a smooth. Uh, he was really a big leader, and
Mhm.
I loved him, but I just loved this. I don't know, he just moved with such grace
Yeah.
and passion. I chose Michael Jackson for that.
Oh, all right. Okay.
And I kind of thought with his like moves, and he kind of wore had did that mask type stuff for a
True.
while. I thought
True.
that was kind of a fun
Yeah, he's
comparison.
slick. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I actually did go with the very surface level mask comparison. And I went with Orville Peck.
Okay, that's fun. I actually don't know who that is.
He's kind of this, more country, more modern country kind of indie
Hmm.
country guy who he always wears a mask that has these little like tassels hanging
That's
down.
amazing. Oh,
That
actually, I do know who that is
yeah,
now. Yeah, that's
that's
too
he
funny.
he is he has an image, and everyone always thinks about that he made the broken nose face mask like a thing.
Yeah, he did. He really did. Yeah. Yeah, that's too funny. Yeah.
So yeah, maybe a little on the nose, but that's all right.
Pun intended.
Yeah, but let's move to his teammate, Ben Wallace, recent Hall of Fame inductee.
Right. So with Ben, uh, that era, that's my favorite era of Pistons. So that era of
Yeah.
Pistons, like just like what they personified was amazing. Um, I chose Nirvana for Ben Wallace, and the reason I
Hmm.
chose it is because Ben Wallace is the only undrafted player to make the Hall of Fame, and I
Yeah,
think that so like they kind of came out of nowhere. He kind of came out of nowhere and just was like all about his own thing and just like had his own style
sure.
and was very aggressive and and then I felt like his career kind of ended. Not obviously the
Yeah,
same way as Nirvana, but like it was
sure.
just like all of a sudden done. And so, and he
Came over to the
lingered on,
Bulls
but
and
he
then
came over the Bulls for well, yes. That crushed me. That when that era was broken up, that crushed me. But
yeah,
yeah,
man, that's really good. I mean, I agree. Such a good story, and
Rip played for Chicago too, though. So
he did. You're right. He
yeah,
did. There's been some weird people that have played for the Bulls. Like looking back, like it's weird that Rondo played for the Bulls, and
well, I think there are certain eras of teams that when you're bad, when you go through like bad eras, the
Mhm.
Lions were like that too, where you get these like aging superstars that you're thinking are going to be like Adrian Peterson played for the
Yeah.
Lions. You know, it's weird. Like Anquan Bolden played for the Lions.
Uh-huh.
Um, just stuff like that. Where like, I mean, we had a bunch of. I mean, we we had Allen Iverson. I mean, we had a lot of.
Sure.
There's a bunch of Josh Smith. We had a bunch of
Uh-huh.
random, players, and like their careers go to die. Those
It
guys.
always just feels like you're collecting
Hmm.
people to like just like kind of almost trick the fans, being like, remember
Yeah.
this guy?
Yeah, that's well, I think that's a big reason why they do it.
Sure.
And like part of you, even though you know that they're past their prime, part of you is like, "Oh my god, this
Yeah.
guy's on my team."
Like
So,
Dwayne Wade to the Bulls. Like
yeah.
he's from Chicago. We
Yeah.
got him.
Yeah.
But it didn't make sense.
Yeah. And on the other side, we had when we got Derrick Rose, he was a
Yeah.
pretty good role player. That's a
Yeah.
guy that I loved his career. Even when he was in Chicago, I loved this whole career because that's a guy like he's from, he embodies where he's from too. And I think
Yeah.
that was obviously tough with his injuries, but I think that he did a decent job of like changing his game and
Definitely. I wish he signed like a
yeah,
one
I
year
think so.
to
That would have been
retire with the
amazing if he had
Bulls.
done that because that I think that would have been
Yeah,
right.
for sure. Um, but back with Ben Wallace. So for my pick for that, so I feel like there is room to compare Bill Laimbeer and Ben Wallace. Because they both like had that kind of aggressive play style. But
Yeah,
I actually feel like Ben Wallace is actually more of a better person. He is a
yeah,
good
I thousand
a
percent
night
agree.
he's like it's a hard exterior shell, but he's like kind on the
Right.
inside.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm gonna connect my previous pick where minor threat to Fugazi.
Yes.
Ben Wallace is
It's
Fugazi.
amazing.
He has his moments of getting a little slower and like a little more polished
Yeah.
than minor threat was.
I love that. I love that. By the
And
way,
I
all my yeah, go on. That's
I
I
was
love
just
that. I love that.
I was just saying, yeah, I feel like me personally, I mean, minor threat's great, but I would choose Fugazi every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I 1,000% agree with that too.
Um, all right, so the last one is the only current player, and it's the aforementioned Cade Cunningham.
So for my all my picks, this is I was like originally gonna pick like indie like more obscure bands, but I was
Sure.
like I don't know. I was kind of thinking about like the because a lot of mine I picked on kind of like their career arc and stuff, and
Hmm.
so here I've put another uh pretty big band. My choice for them for Kate Cunningham is Toad the Wet Sprocket.
Nice.
Okay, and it's because okay, Toad Wet Sprocket had so many bangers, but
Hmm.
nobody really knew who Toad's Wet Sprocket is. And there's almost a period of time where you turn on the radio, you be like, "Oh, I like this song. This song's so good. Who's it by?" And they'll be like, "I don't know who it was," but if they didn't know, it was Toad's Wet Sprocket.
Sure.
So like that's kind of how I feel like Cade Cunningham. I mean, he's great. He could be great, but he also could just be that constant like
Yeah.
solid guy. So that's where I'm feeling right now. Maybe
I,
that one will change.
I feel like Toad the Wet Sprocket is a band where you can mention them to someone and like three people will like be actually thinking of three other bands.
Yes, yes. But then when you show him a song, you'd be like,
Like,
"Oh, who wrote
oh
this
yeah,
song?"
yeah.
Yeah, because I like this song.
Right. Or they're like, you mean the Toadies? Like, or just like
Yeah.
a bunch of just like it's close, but not quite.
Yeah, or Gin Blossoms or whatever the era
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
That's pretty solid. I went within, it's actually maybe a band, this is I think they're from the Midwest, but they're a young band who is in that sort of emo genre. Um and I chose them because I feel like they are on the precipice where I can see them getting blown up. And when I saw them recently, so the band is Saturdays at Your Place.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, they're
And I
awesome. Yeah.
I saw them like, this past summer and I'm like, man, I feel like I'm watching someone before they're about to be like
Yeah.
really big.
Yeah.
Um
Which is a really special feeling. I
yeah,
agree with you. And
definitely.
actually, I was thinking of bands like that like had that chance. And my indie choice for that one was going to be Hot Rod Circuit
Hmm.
because there's a band like that was on a big label, big enough label that really looked like they were going to blow up, but kind of didn't or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think Saturday, I think that band is going to be Saturday's Your Place is going to be. They feel like you can just tell us like we went on tour with Ben Quad like
Yeah.
uh not last year but the year before, something like that, and I was like, this is the last time
Hmm.
that we'll tour with you guys because you'll be too big after this. And it
And yeah, I
was
think Saturdays at Your Place just opened for free throw, and now I
yeah,
feel like they're not going to be able to open after this.
yeah, yep, yep.
So
It's kind of,
that's
but like I said, it's a
totally
cool time to catch a band because it feels like they're still in that like early phase, but they're really catching fire and like
yeah,
connecting as a band.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe
Yeah,
Cade can get
let's hope, man.
to that
I'll
next
root for your
level.
version more than my
Yeah,
version.
yeah, right, for sure. All right, well, dude, this was a lot of fun talking Pistons and just Detroit sports in general.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Absolutely. And I hope for the best for your Detroit Lions. If
Thanks,
not,
Aaron.
also maybe we'll get to see some Empire stuff.
Yeah, I'm hoping. How do you feel about are you a football fan then?
Loosely. I mean, just I'm from Chicago, so I'm still somewhat technically like contractually a Bears fan.
Sure. Well,
Uh,
the funny thing I think about different sports is like the different some local teams, regionally speaking, compete with each other and some
mhm.
don't. So it's funny to think about like, oh, you know, I could root for like the Browns or the
Sure.
Cavs, but not for you know what I mean.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's actually a shocking amount of Packers fans in Chicago.
oh really?
Yeah, which I don't
Hmm.
I don't really know why
There's
because
a
we
there's a
we have
bunch
a
of them.
major team here.
Right. I mean, that makes no sense to me. There's a bunch of them. Do you know the UP
Yeah,
of Urban? So there's the half or more of the UP. A lot of them are Packers fans, but
I could
that kind
see
of makes
that.
more sense because you
Yeah,
can actually drive to those
right.
games. And it's very funny that that's part of Michigan.
Yeah. I mean, technically that's probably closer to Green Bay than it is Detroit.
It is. It
Yeah.
absolutely is. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, but I'm watching from afar, and I Caleb Williams is cool to watch. I
Yeah.
do
It
I
could
do
be.
like
It could
him.
be something. Yeah. I mean, I
Um,
have a but. I mean, that being said, the early rivalries that like growing up, like Jordan and the Bulls and
mhm.
stuff like that, those were deep, deep in my bones at the time. But I don't feel that way. I have a heated college rivalry where I cannot stand anything Michigan and
Uh-huh.
hate them. That's my big rivalry. But like in professional sports, I don't feel that as intensely as I do like a
It,
college rivalry. And so
it's the
like,
the Cardinals for me. I can't
hmm
I can't root
yeah,
for anything
yeah.
Cardinals.
Well, I remember that era. with
Yeah.
Pujols and all that.
Uh-huh. Yes. I can't do that. And then, I'm much more forgiving across town with the White Sox. Like I don't I don't hold grudges on that.
Sure,
Like we're
yeah.
all Chicago.
Also, they're also so bad you kind of
Right.
feel you kind of
True.
feel bad for
Like
them.
we weren't that good, but like they were the whole level.
Yeah.
So but when it comes to basketball, I don't hate the Bucks or
Yeah.
anything like that. Like
I mean, like I said, I hated that era. Well, I think it's more Jordan than it was the
it
Bulls,
was
but
the
like,
teams, yeah. It was
right. And I absolutely don't feel that now. And it's like I have a lot of friends from Chicago or like Cleveland and like
yeah.
the surrounding, and like I'm legitly happy,
Yeah,
happy for
yeah.
them. Like I was obviously really bummed that the Tigers lost to the Guardians, but I texted Ben and I was like, "Hey
Hmm.
man, beat the Yankees."
And we got a Yankees
And
Dodgers World
yes, that's right.
Series,
Yep.
and
And the Yankees lost, and that's
America
what matters.
America loved it, but I feel like real sports fans maybe less so.
Yes, definitely. By the way, I have
Uh
to tell you that shirt behind you is incredible.
that is
It
an
is
indie basketball original.
so amazing.
Yeah,
I love
it's
it.
it's good. I wish we had more. We sold out of these way too fast.
It's so cool. One more question.
um
One question I have you for you. Have you watched the Steph Curry comedy, the show on it's on
no, okay, I've been very curious because from the trailers it did look kind of funny.
yeah, what's the other the comedy actor who's in it, who I who's in he's amazing and has been in a bunch of things that I also love. If you ever watched now my brain is not working. Um he was in a show called Making History, which is a really obscure show, but
Adam
a friend
Pally.
Adam Pell, yes.
Yeah, he was on
All shows to reference. But
Happy
yeah,
Endings, and
happy
yeah.
endings is what I was thinking of. But anyway, I followed his entire career, and he's in a billion amazing things.
Yeah.
And yeah,
He's
so
a big
anything,
hoops nerd. Yeah.
yes, and anything that he's in, I think.
Uh-huh.
I mean, especially TV show. I mean, so there's been some dud movies, but like
Hmm.
anything he's in, I've just really enjoyed. So yeah, it's fun.
For sure. Yeah, I dig him. He does a good amount of like the mumblecore movies and
Yeah,
things like that. And
that genre.
yeah. But I dig him. I'm curious about the show. I need to watch it. I didn't even realize it was already out. But
Yeah, well, I
oh,
think we're
David
from
Wayne created it.
yeah, yeah. So it's got high pedigree too.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think you'd enjoy it.
Worth checking out. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks again for joining, dude. It's been awesome talking.
Yeah, thank you
And
for having me.
go Lions, go Pistons.
Yeah. Yeah. Same to you.
All right, man. I'll catch you
Yeah, I
later.
think we'll see what happens at the end of the
For
year.
sure.